Neal Moser asked me to come to his private shop. If you don't know who Neal Moser is, he's the man behind so many important moments in the BC Rich history of guitars. Not only is he the mastermind behind the extremely complex electronics in BC Rich guitars, the 10-string BC Rich bitch guitar, and of course, the Scythe, which became the BC Rich version. Although a large bulk of the footage I took is private, in other words, he doesn't want to disclose his processes and how he builds certain things and how he does certain things, I was able to get some of the footage to show you right now where he's talking about some personal guitars and some interesting facts.
You can tell a Siegel Jr. when you're looking for them on the internet because they don't have binding down the neck. It's a Siegel Jr. When we wanted to take the regular Siegel, which had binding, ebony board, sharper point here, more electronics, that kind of stuff, and make a little bit less expensive model. I came up with this.
So when was this built?
This was probably another one without a serial number. That's because it was a prototype. It was the first one. It was mine. This was 1974, late 74, early 75, somewhere around there.
And then that turned into the Eagle. No?
Yeah, inevitably.
Minus the point.
Yeah, this came off, and a little kicked out of there, and it turned into the Siegel 2. And then from the Siegel 2, Bernie and I spun that into the Eagle. When I gig, I have one guitar, and that's all I play. I don't have 15 guitars that I run in between.
So this kind of looks like, to me, now before the Virgin, you were calling yours the...
I was calling it a Scythe.
Okay.
And this is a modification of the Scythe. All I did was took the Scythe body and I rounded the points in these two places, and it turned into the Wraith.
Oh, nice.
And somewhere around here, I was hoping to find it. I have the original Scythe prototype.
So to me, when I think of these guitars, I think of the very first neck Thrus.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that's when I think of the early guitars. I think of the very first neck Thrus I ever remember seeing.
Yeah,
so
all the BC Riches were neck Thrus, and we didn't start doing bolt-ons until late in the 70s. There's a long story behind that, but yeah, they were all neck Thrus.
That guitar's gorgeous,
and I'm still. That's still pretty much all I build here is neck Thrus.
Is there a logic behind that? Is it a sustain issue, a looks issue, feel, durability?
Well, and the reality is the bolt-on guitar sustained the best, and the set neck sustained next best, and the neck through was last in the sustained thing. But the consensus of everybody was you couldn't hear the difference in any of it by the human ear. Whether a guitar sustains or not has very little to do with the neck setup or almost anything on it. It's how the guitar is built and set up. Depends on how well it sustains. The simple situation is you have a pile of parts here and a pile of parts here, and some guy that doesn't know what he's doing puts this guitar together and sets it up, and somebody that does know what he's doing does this one. This guitar is going to be awesome, it's going to sustain, it's going to sound great. This one's going to be questionable. And that's how it works. It has very little to do with the construction as long as the construction is good. It's quality woods, quality construction methods, and that kind of stuff. This one was built, it was the first one that came off the line when we went to My Electronics. When I first got to BC Rich, it wasn't BC Rich, for one thing, it was Bernardo's guitar shop. They had 16 Siegels in the mill. 4 of them were finished, and they're the ones that went to the January NAMM show in 74. It's easy for me. I turned 30 in December of 73, and then I started to work with Bernie in January 74. The QV up here stands for Quo Vadis, which was the name of the band I was in at the time. And the inlays in it right here, Bernie says, well, this is going to be your guitar. Why don't you do the inlay work? So I put in the inlays, and back then, you didn't have the really cool stand, bass, and all that kind of stuff. You had a thing with a bit on the end of it. And so all the depth was, you had to hold the depth by hand and run it by hand. So anyway, I put in all these, and Bernie looks at it afterwards, and he says, well, you'll never be out of work. So anyway, and after I did this, I said I never want to do it again in my life. And now, of course, I have to inlay all my guitars. So that's the way it was. This is also something, for people who know Seagulls, will go, okay, those aren't Guild pickups. That's because we were being distributed by LD Heater at the time, and LD Heater was doing Gibson, and so these are Gibson PAFs. Yeah. So these are original early '74 PAFs, and this is, of course, got my own setup in it, and the regular Seagulls were a little bit different. But anyway, this is the first one. Eddie Estrada owns number 2. Dave Mason owns number 3. Jim Krieger owns number 4. And I lost it after that. I can't remember any of that stuff anymore. But anyway, this is a special guitar for sure. A semi-hollow.
Oh, wow.
That's the one, Neal. That's got a tree trunk neck. That's the baby I like.
Yeah, that is a Koa, fiddleback Koa top, fiddleback Koa back, mahogany neck, mahogany sides. And it's got kind of a fat neck because it's mine. And this is also the brand new reissue of the Kaler Quad Bridge that Gary and I worked on for. Well, what Gary does is he comes up with these ingenious ideas, and then he sends them to me and says, "What do you think?" and I'll take a look at it and say, "Well, maybe we got to do that, and we'll change it or whatever." You know, Gary and I have been friends for like umpteen years.
So is this a more recent build? Is this something you built more recently?
Let me see. When did I build this? No, it's not recent. 12/10. Oh, this is on my birthday. 12/10/07.
Oh, okay, 2007.
Yeah, so it's 10, 11 years old.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that I decided that I wanted to do. And that one hanging over there is kind of a more recent idea, a recent build of the same idea.
So when I think of these guitars that you make, especially thinking when they started in the 70s, they're kind of outrageous. Now it's not a thing. Everything's got outrageous guitars, but yours were definitely outrageous at the time. Like everything was shaped like a Les Paul or a Strat.
Sure.
So where in your brain do you go, hey, you know what? I want to do this outrageous thing.
I have no idea. Probably like I've led my whole life. Just like one day leads into the next day, and the next day leads into the next day. Did you start out to be a master luthier? No. Never crossed my mind. When people ask me, what are you? What did you do? I'm a singer. I sang for a living for 30 years. I played in nightclubs in a trio for 30 years. That's what we did. And then during the day, that's a lot of people don't know that. The 11 years I was with BC Rich, I was gigging 5 nights a week that whole time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Used to play gigs for BC Rich.
One of my favorite guitars.
Yeah.
With a big fat
I'd like to have about 1 million tons of this wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't find that. It's too hard to find these days.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's hard to explain where I come up with stuff like the bitch design. I wanted a 10-string because I didn't like 12 strings, and it was supposed to be like a middle of the road guitar for people, singing acoustic, playing a little lead on. It was never ever meant to be a metal guitar. It got hijacked somewhere along the way, but I wanted a 10-string because I always felt that with a 12-string, the bottom end of the guitar just got taken over by the octaves, and so I eliminated the 2 octaves to go to a 10-string. But when I actually designed it, I had Jose make a blank, a neck and a square blank, and I took that home and I laid out where the strings would go and where they would go to the tail. And the machine heads had to go at an angle to keep the line straight. So then I just drew the rest of it strictly by hand. I didn't have a drawing or a template or anything.
Right.
I just drew it out the way I thought it would be cool. And the funny thing about it too was Jose didn't give me quite as much wood on the front horns I thought he was gonna. So I had to shorten them up a little bit more. And so the way it turned out isn't exactly the way I originally pictured it, but worked out fine. Anything that's still selling today is fine because I designed it in September '77, and then October, November, to December is the 3-month turnaround that it takes to run a guitar through build process. You put one in here, 3 months later it comes out. And so we took the 3 months to build the ones that took the NAMM in January. And it was introduced at the 74, or should be the 78 NAMM.
So did it take off immediately, or was there like a player that grabbed it and then all of a sudden it became a mess to have?
It took off right away.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
It took off right away. People were going, wow, what's that? The first time I ever had a camera stuck in my face was at that NAMM show. And I don't like cameras stuck in my face most of the time. I really don't. But we were standing here at the booth, and the guy walked up, and back in those days, it was big shoulder cameras,
Right.
And a guy with a microphone, he walked up to Bernie and he went, I see you have a new guitar out here. What is this, And he kind of went, Neal designed it, go ask him. And so they walked over to me, and I get the mic stuck in my face, and I'm sitting there going, like, trying to explain the situation.